Luis Villaseñor, Unlocking the Secrets of Performance and Hydration with LMNT. Firstly, I'd like to thank my friend and all-round amazing human, Judd Lienhard, for introducing me to LMNT while we were in Texas at his gym and his podcast studio for making this amazing episode happen. You can reach him at www.juddlienhard.com. Check out that link in the show notes. So this week, I had the incredible opportunity to sit down with Luis Villaseñor, the co-founder of KetoGains and a driving force behind the formulation of LMNT, and also a co-founder. In his words, after years of coaching people who were doing everything right and still failing, I started asking a simple question. What's the one variable we're all missing? The answer wasn't exotic or complicated. It was basic physiology. Humans don't run on willpower. They run on electrolytes. And when you fix the foundation, performance, clarity, and resilience follow. Good science isn't proprietary knowledge. It's practical common sense. And that principle became the backbone of everything I create. Powerful words. Luis is a co-founder of LMNT, a hydration company built on evidence, not marketing mythology. He's the architect of the KetoGains protocol and a globally respected educator in metabolic health, training, and nutrition. Born and raised in Mexico, he has dedicated his career to teaching people how to build stronger bodies through simple principles applied with discipline and consistency. Luis has spent the last 2 decades at the intersection of nutrition, human performance, and real-world metabolic science. As the co-founder of KetoGains and a driving force behind the formulation of LMNT, which I take every day, by the way, alongside the state supplements, he has guided tens of thousands of people from everyday parents to elite athletes through some of the most challenging physiological transitions of their lives. His influence helped reshape modern understanding of low-carb performance, electrolyte balance, and strength training long before the wider industry caught up. You can connect with Luis on the show links below. Please click on those. He's on Instagram as Luis Villaseñor. And you've got the LMNT Instagram page there as Drink LMNT. And his 2 websites, drinklmnt.com and ketogains.com. Thanks for watching. I'm Damien Porter, former New Zealand Special Forces operator, subject matter expert, and the How Not to Die guy. And you're listening to my podcast, Straight Talk Mind and Muscle. This episode is proudly sponsored by these guys, State and State for Women, because aging is inevitable, but how we age is a choice. State is the ultimate daily formula for optimal health and longevity, backed by clinically proven 100% natural ingredients that's designed to support hormone health, stress resilience, energy, and performance. And I use it every single day. And a special thanks also to my new sponsor, Michael Mason and the Mason Survival Protocol. Links to both of these are in the show notes below. Catch all my past episodes and resources in the notes as well. Thanks for watching. Now let's get into it. And we are live. Welcome to the Straight Talk Mind and Muscle podcast. Gosh, I should have checked, but I think I can get it right. Welcome to my guest today, Luis Villaseñor.
That's good. Hello, Damien.
Hey, great to have you on. Thank you for your time. Thank you for organizing it. And thank you for what you've done, making these amazing little magical sachets. And as I said just before, my boys gave me the awesome opening. You made something called LMNT. What does LMNT stand for?
Basically, it's just the idea of having the perfect amount of elements in your body. Beautiful. So basically, as you know, it's basically sodium, potassium, magnesium. What are those elements? That's beautiful. The gist of it.
So you're over there in Mexico City. I had known about you before LMNT came on the scene, and I remember back to the ketogenic sort of dieting world and success world, and you seem to have found a gap in that ketogenic diet of missing those elements. But you know, you're the founder of KetoGains as well, and I remember that being quite a leader in the space of how to actually put together a ketogenic diet. Let's talk about that, KetoGains, and how you got into the ketogenic diet and pros and cons of that.
Yeah, for sure. So long story short, I started keto about 25 years ago. Keto was very popular, I'd say probably 6 years ago, was like at its peak, if we remember correctly. So I started when most people didn't really know about it. And as most people understand keto, they use it as a rapid fat loss diet. and it has many preconceptions. One of them is that it's usually a low protein diet and it's a high fat diet. Contrary to what most people believe, the protocol that I suggest for my clients is more so something that I created for myself initially, which is a high protein diet, low carbohydrate, and not so high on fats. So it goes very much against what a lot of people understand, because from what I learned and what I experimented, and actually the correct definition of a ketogenic diet is not a high fat diet low in protein, but rather a diet so low in carbohydrates that allows your body to produce ketones via the process of fat burning. And this fat can be either your own body fat, which is what most people want to do, or dietary fat. The
And
issue what that
of
yeah.
course, that's not why it was invented. It was invented in the 1920s to help treat pediatric or childhood epilepsy. It was nothing to do with fat loss. It was literally, let's put a fasting mimicking diet online. Oh, sorry, word wasn't around back then, but get one out there to help these poor little kids and babies not have these seizures. So of course it was nothing to do with fat loss. Then people like us sort of realized it can also have this side effect, isn't it?
Yeah, actually, there are some records of trying this a version of this diet in Greek manifests
Wow.
to treat people like they were supposedly possessed. Of course, we can call it a certain kind of seizure, schizophrenia, whatever. And they found out that putting them on a low sugar, low carbohydrate diet, basically more plants and animal foods, sort of allowed them, along with fasting, to sort of act normal.
Yeah.
So this is like some of the things that I've researched regarding a combination of a little bit of fasting, which is basically a cousin of ketogenic diets, and keto. And going back to my story, I started this 25 years ago, basically because when I was in college, well, way before that, I used to be the fat kid at school.
Oh. Oh.
I tried to, in a way, I improved myself, became like leaner, started to bodybuild, especially in Mexico. We're talking about the 1980s.
Yeah.
It wasn't, Mexico is not a culture like in the States where you have the gyms in most colleges or schools. Rather, uh, basically, we just play football. And I'm very bad at I actually don't like soccer. So I'm like the worst Mexican ever. And so I wasn't really someone that was very sporty. More so, my family is more like a bookworm family. We are
Mhm.
nerds. We love to read. Like my childhood was either reading comics or Encyclopedia Britannica, if you remember. That was basically what I did,
Yeah,
or surf the internet,
we
right?
had the whole bunch of them in our bookcase in the family home. Yes.
Yeah, I used to take some episodes or books to read over the weekends, for example, and I used to carry them. So again, and that's a little bit of my background regarding the learning. So I always try to learn a lot of what interests me. And when I got into college, for whatever reason, I got into a period of mild depression and ended up being anorexic and bulimic.
Oh
So
gosh, that's
basically,
really awful.
I lost a lot of the weight that I had gained.
Yeah.
And then, thankfully for me, I basically overcame it by myself without having to go through, to a psychiatrist and etc. Right?
Brilliant.
But because I have been overweight all my life, well, my previous life, I was afraid of getting fat again. Right? So I started to research and see what actually bodybuilders do to get lean for the stage while conserving all their muscle they gained.
Hmm.
And with a little knowledge that I had achieved or learned browsing basically the internet forums of the time, I found out about Dan Duquesne and many other researchers at the moment that were proposing a diet that was called at the time Boreopus, which was a
Body
high
opus.
protein Boreopus, yes.
Yes. Yes.
A lot of old time people remember that, especially in the 2000s. And he was in collaboration with Lyle McDonald at the time. I actually got to talk with them in those old school bodybuilding forums and sort of started to learn how to do a proper ketogenic diet for bodybuilding, not in the context of just pure fat loss.
Hmm.
And that's what I started to get a little bit of love into research and nutrition and do it by yourself and learn. And one of the first things I learned at the moment was I felt low energy, I felt tired, and usually you think, oh, you need carbohydrates. No, I learned that it was basically a lack of sodium and electrolytes.
Wow.
So I learned it from the start, and it's something that I've always been a little bit careful of to not fall short. So for me, always when I've done low carb diets, which I've done for the last 25 years, basically is keep my hydration on top, especially with adding lots of sodium. And as you know, first eating like a higher fat or low carb diet has always been a little bit seen on the bad side, nutrition wise. And then also adding sodium to everything has also been like a warning sign, right? It's like don't eat too high, lots of salt or high sodium because you're gonna get kidney problems or you're gonna get high blood pressure, etc., etc. And having doctors in my family, they were always, oh, you're gonna die next year. Oh, if you keep doing this, blah blah blah. And I tried to sort of prove my point that they were wrong. I've always been also like a little bit of a black sheep in my family. They tell me, don't do this. Okay, let me see if it's actually correct or not. I want to review by myself instead of just following orders blindly. I like to learn why, and if it resonates with me, I'll follow it. If it doesn't, I'll find my way.
Yeah, I love
Right.
that.
So I basically did my own research, and I was what you can call a closet ketogenic dieter for years. But people started to ask me, hey, how do you do this? How do you achieve that? Because they saw the results that I had.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, I actually didn't study nutrition. I studied marketing and business administration. And I dedicated probably half of my life to running restaurants, working at Coca-Cola, like doing many other things, but always had a passion for nutrition, mostly for myself. And something that happened in 2010, 2007 is that I started browsing Reddit and many other online forums. And I found a forum where people were giving advice on keto diets,
Mm-hmm.
but they were giving a lot of wrong advice,
Yeah.
especially regarding the sports performance, bodybuilding, etc. And I started to sort of help people and teach them how to do it properly. For whatever reason, I sort of started to get a little bit famous or get Reddit points, and people started to treat me as someone that knew a certain kind of information and that got people results. Sort of at that time, I started to get like I wanted to find a way to actually help more people,
Mm-hmm.
but I found out that I also needed credentials. So I started to get a little bit more serious on the knowledge, getting certifications on here or that, and eventually today I'm studying my master's on sports nutrition.
Oh, brilliant. Brilliant. Thank you for finishing up on that part there. That was what I gleaned from the last few minutes of what you're saying. There's information about a ketogenic diet, information about all diets really, but there's the misinformation, and there's actually, what if we go to an expert who actually studies this as his career, his or her career? And as you said about sodium, I thought back to Professor Dominic D'Agostino, one of the leading clinical and military researchers for the ketogenic diet. And he states regarding sodium, for the listeners, it's teaching Lewis how to suck eggs, which I promise I will not do. But he states the average person will need, I think, 2 to 4 grams of sodium a day, and if they're exercising and in a hot environment, I think it was somewhere around about 4 to 9 grams of sodium a day. It was incredibly high, but this is an absolute expert and probably one of the top 5 experts at the time in what his small field is. So when you were saying, doing it wrong, I was thinking back to when people thought, oh, well, protein will turn into cake. Protein will go through this thing called, and you're smiling there.
Gluconeogenesis.
Yeah, gluconeogenesis. And maybe on paper, but how about we listen to somebody who actually knows what they're talking about and can explain that process through, and then also kind of reverse engineering it. They've seen that Lewis knows what he's talking about because look at his body, and then you've got the credentials. So kudos to you for realizing that. A lot of men's egos wouldn't let them do that. They might just go, hey, look at me, my results are all that matters. But you put it all together and gained not only credibility, but credentials as well.
So basically, I can say that I built my career on proving a lot of facts that people knew or they thought that were correct, sort of incorrect.
Yeah.
for a certain context.
Yes.
That's always what I like to show. It's what you believe can work for a certain point of view, for a certain context, but for what you want to achieve, you are looking at the wrong part of the picture. So a lot of the beliefs and understandings of a ketogenic diet are based on ketogenic diets for epilepsy or neurological diseases. For that context, you actually do need a high level of ketones, high dietary fat, and low protein because you want to maintain a classic ketogenic diet ratio, sorry, to maintain again a high level of ketones that are going to help basically your brain,
Yes.
which is again that purpose. But fat loss and nutrition, nutrient density, performance, all of those things are not important in this context. Now, for the context of most people that gravitate toward the keto diet, which is fat loss, you don't actually want to lose weight. You want to maintain as much as possible your muscle and basically target body fat, which is a different thing. So when a lot of people start a ketogenic diet and they lose the magic 5 to 10 pounds in the first 2 weeks, they think the diet is magic and it's not just basically it's weight, but it's not fat weight that they're losing. In many cases, or most of it is basically a combination of water and glycogen.
Yes.
And if they don't do it properly, they do the high fat diet, there's a chance of also losing a lot of muscle or a little muscle, but there is a big component of muscle that is going to be lost, which is very much what is happening today with people that are using GLP-1 drugs.
I was going to say the
Ozempic.
exact same thing.
It's exactly the same thing
Yeah.
that's happening.
Yeah.
That a lot of that initial weight loss is glycogen, water, because people are basically not eating.
Mm.
And there's a risk component of indeed losing lean mass, which a lot of people that are against these drugs are using it as a scapegoat or a negative point. If you do a GLP, like if you use Ozempic or any of these GLP-1 medications properly, using a high protein diet, like if you're going to eat very little, okay, just basically do like a PSA with protein shakes, you're going to minimize the risk of muscle loss and even less if you do some resistance training, right?
Let me just make sure we haven't glossed over the one for the listeners there. I'm literally paraphrasing what you read back. As long as your protein remains high when you're on a fat loss diet, you're not going to lose as much muscle. Is that what you were inferring there?
Exactly. That's
Thank
it.
you.
And so the protocol that I basically appropriated, because I cannot say I created, just taking little bits and pieces of things that I learned here and there, and then probably just put it on their brand name and basically teach it for years with different iterations depending on the context is basically whole food first,
Mm-hmm.
higher protein than most people actually normally eat. And it doesn't have to be high fat, rather is fat according to your current context, and lots of vegetables. There's a misconception that if you're going to be eating from 15 to 30 grams of carbohydrates per day, and I prefer net carbohydrates, that you're actually going to suffer through many nutrient deficiencies. And I've actually been in debates with lots of, before I was actually a dietitian or a nutritionist, I used to be, especially in Mexico, saying like, oh, you're not even a nutritionist. What are you saying? Like everything you say is basically bunk. And even in the States. And I remember a few years ago, I was invited to give a lecture in the University of San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
And we were sort of like in a debate between different nutritionists, and we had to show which would be the most nutritionally dense diet without actually showing the name of the diet. And the one that actually got higher points regarding all the micronutrients was my version of keto diet.
Wow,
Because it
that's
was
awesome.
basically high protein based on red meat, eggs, plus lots of berries, green beans, avocado, zucchini. Basically, we covered 100% of all the RDAs versus a vegan diet or versus higher carb diet, etc. Because again, my focus is on low carb, depending on the context, but mostly getting the biggest amount of nutrients so that you don't really need to use a lot of supplements. Of course, there are going to be certain supplements that you're going to need, especially depending on the type of diet that you're doing. But let's try to minimize that those and focus on eating whole foods and getting the most amount of nutrients so that those are basically our second option, right?
Brilliant. Brilliant.
And one thing that I've seen, and it's the thing that I always repeat, I'm basically like a recorder. Every single one of my clients, the first thing that they complain during the first 2 weeks of trying the protocol is that it's way too much food. Because what they're doing is basically eating more protein than they normally would.
Yeah.
I've seen that a lot of, especially females, tend to eat on average. Like, again, this is like probably not exactly true, but from many of my clients, what I see after I do a recollection of their previous diet, they eat on average 60 to 70 grams of protein, and not the best kind. Whereas I usually put, especially my female clients, on 120 grams of whole food protein, not shakes.
No.
And then as many vegetables from a certain list, vegetables that basically grow up ground that they can eat, plus the fat that comes naturally with those foods.
Exactly.
So what happens is you're eating on average between 1 and 2 kilos of food.
Exactly.
So what happens is it's a lot of food. It's super nutrient food, more food than most people will normally. Well, I wouldn't say that most people will normally eat, because there are people that are eating probably 4 kilograms of food, but pizza and snacks and things like that, right? That basically are just nutrient void and that actually make you eat more. And one of the things that I learned during my years, and especially also talking with a lot of friends like Ted Naiman, for example, who's now is promoting nutrition. Sorry, his current protocol is called satiety per calorie.
Dr. Ted Naiman, that's right, yes.
Exactly. It's very much based on the same ideas and concepts. The more protein to a point from whole foods, plus, sorry about that, plus the more nutrients that you give your body, there are certain signals both in your brain and your gut, etc., that activate different pathways to satiety.
Yes. So Ted Naiman, right, from memory, he is really the satiety guy, saying how those signals in the brain signal you to overeat or as you said, be satiated, be happy with what you've got.
Exactly, because a lot of people used to say, for example, on keto that calories don't matter, right? So I do believe the calories matter.
Well, there's one very famous guy that lies about that, yes.
For example, when I started doing keto and started to sort of get popular, again, I used to be the keto anti-keto guy because I told very uncomfortable truths regarding keto. Okay, protein doesn't really hinder ketosis as much as people believe. It doesn't have a negative effect for fat loss. It may lower ketones, but ketones are not the goal. They are a tool, right? Exactly. The other would be calories matter. Even if you're in keto, yeah, you're probably eating, people used to say, I eat as much as I want and I don't gain weight. Yeah, but it doesn't matter. You're probably eating much less calories than you thought you were.
Exactly.
And of course, the type of calories do matter. It's not the same to eat 2,000 calories from processed foods, pastries and snacks and potato chips and so on, versus try to eat 2,000 calories from red meat, eggs, lots of vegetables.
Well, the bodybuilders, you talked about old school before, just to add, not to interrupt, to add to that, and this is where I was going for the listeners, just unraveling what you're saying into a usable form. Serge Nubret, he used to eat 4 kilos of horse meat a day, being in France. Kent, you talked about calories matter. All calories are not created equal. That's paraphrasing you slightly, sorry. But somebody's saying, 2,000 calories of pizza is not the same as meat and eggs. Let's get a little real for the listeners so they can understand that. Could you please talk about 1,000 calories of meat, of protein, and listeners, that's what protein is. How many calories does that cost on roughly on average for a human to digest versus 1,000 calories of straight up, say, rice? And I know those sort of numbers. Could you please talk to those?
So there's a topic, a concept called thermogenic effect of foods, which is basically, people think that you eat something and your body basically just uses it. The actual truth is your body actually requires energy to metabolize everything that you're eating, basically like a factory, right? Yes. So ingredients to create something or to build something, but I have the cost of lightning, I have the cost of the people that work in the factory, so it's not free. Everything has a cost.
Good.
There are certain foods that actually have a high metabolic cost. And also, depending on your metabolic health, they may have higher cost or less. So, for example, the three main macronutrients: protein, carbohydrates, and fats. Generally speaking, I'm just going to give you average numbers. Protein can have in between 15 up to 30% of, let's call it caloric loss when you metabolize it. There are some tricks to increase it. Then carbohydrates, on average, may have 12 to 18, depending on the type of carbohydrates and your metabolic health. And then fat can have from 0 up to 10, depending on the types of fat, but usually is considered as 0. These numbers are usually factored in many calorie calculations. But how I treat them is try to increase the thermogenic effect of foods via a combination of these macronutrients, so that you're basically, I wouldn't say getting negative calories because it's not going to happen, but you're able to eat a lot more. And there's high cost of this metabolization without affecting the nutrient absorption, because it doesn't mean that you're going to absorb less nutrients. You absorb all the nutrients, just your body has to work a little bit more to basically metabolize that food. So, for example, going back to proteins, it's very different to eat whole food protein, basically, especially red meat, versus eat protein shakes. Protein shakes do have a high metabolic, thermogenic effect, but not as high as eating the full whole. If you were to eat, for example, on average, 40 to whatever you can grams of protein, I'm talking about the macro, in one meal, that has a higher chance of getting up to those 30% of metabolic loss to a point.
Yes.
Versus if you only had a shake, which would be 10 to 12. Now, someone that is on the overweight side, for example, that is insulin resistant, those people have shown to have a much less metabolic effect from carbohydrates, especially processed ones, versus someone that is super lean and metabolically flexible.
And again, paraphrasing, they're the people that they look at a picture of cake and gain weight.
Exactly. That's one of the reasons. Basically, you eat 1,000 calories of donuts, and your body is going to absorb those 1,000 calories, right? Versus someone that may be on the lean side, like everybody has one friend that basically is super lean and can sort of eat whatever, and he never gains weight. That person actually can actually lose some weight, even if they were eating more calories than other persons, right? For example, many athletes, Olympic athletes, we all remember the case of Michael Phelps, that he was rumored to eat 8,000 calories during his time at the Olympics.
Yeah.
To actually eat that amount of food, he had to eat a lot of processed food, because first, it wasn't possible. It's not possible for many people to eat 8,000 calories from whole foods. You're not going to be able. You have to be eating the whole day.
Yeah, and bodybuilders, for the listeners, again, if we look at people like Lee Priest, a huge bodybuilder, I might tell you a famous story about him and I soon. He was eating 3,500 to 4,000 calories a day, and his job was to eat and lift the weights.
Yeah, so eating a lot of calories for many people, a lot of people think, oh, that would be heaven. It's actually a job. It's not something fun.
No.
Right? Yeah, of course, you can eat probably 1,000 eating pizza and ice cream while watching TV, but it's not something that most people will be able to sustain long term. Or well, there may be some, of course, but it's not the norm, right? But again, coming back to this thermogenic effect, the diet as I structured basically allows for, let's say, to a point to increase the thermogenic effect that you get from foods. High protein, carbohydrates in the necessary amounts, so it doesn't really matter. And I prefer the type of fats that actually also have a higher thermogenic effect, like coconut oil, for example, which basically converts to MCTs to a point, right?
That's a brilliant answer to it. Thank you. And, just again to tie it up in bow, remember, I am just an ex-soldier and just a fireman. I know a few things, and I interview some amazing people, which is awesome. But, that 1,000 calories of meat, really you're only getting possibly 700 to 850 calories there. So it doesn't take much to drop weight with a small calorie loss. But these people that say, I'm calories don't matter. They do. You are a machine, but everybody's different. I love that you've stated the differences there. I actually interviewed a guy last night, again, stating that what we learn in the textbooks, it's not just one case fits all. And you are the perfect example, because I'm sure that you metabolize things very differently when you were starting at university than you are now. You've changed your metabolism completely.
Totally.
Hey, really great explanation of KetoGains, and I love the calculator that you have. I also was very impressed with what you said there, essentially saying, using the right thing for the right person, right time. A ketogenic diet may be appropriate for certain times of life and certain applications. But we started the conversation off with LMNT, elements that you're missing. You stated with the ketogenic diet how that was the really missing part for you health wise. LMNT, I've got you on here because my boy and I were in Montana. We're at the PBR rodeo, and where we parked, there was an LMNT shop. And I went, no way. And we've just come from Judd Lienhard's studio and gym in Austin, Texas. Great guy, Judd, top strength coach. And he had, my son said this morning, a wall of LMNT. So this stuff must be pretty good. And I remember when you sort of invented it, and I was hearing about it on the Facebook forums. LMNT is now mainstream. Can you talk to us about what is in LMNT and why? And people were loving it. I mean, I don't know if you were at the rodeo when we were there. I think you're around the time. There was the premixed drinks, and the people were loving the drinks there. And these are a beer drinking rodeo sort of people as well. So what is LMNT about, and why does, I'd suggest, everybody need electrolytes?
So, like, first, the idea behind the element, going back to keto, one of the main, basically, the main deterrent that I always found with people is basically they started to feel tired, and they usually blame that on the lack of carbohydrates or sugar.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, yeah, that can happen to a point. It's part of the issue when your body is switching the energy source from glucose to fats. It takes a while for the body, especially if you come from a high carbohydrate diet, which most people do, to adapt. There's a process of adaptation indeed. But you can sort of mitigate and make that adaptation be a breeze if you basically target the missing component, which is something that a lot of people dismiss, which is sodium. Right,
which is common sense. If we take for a fact they're just losing glycogen and losing water, and you said 5 to 10 pounds, I think. So I've gone, you lost 5 kilos of this thing. It must just flush out that sodium, those electrolytes.
It's common sense, but not so common that people actually think about it.
No,
especially
exactly.
Because there's sort of like a brainwash or a campaign over the last 30 years that salt is bad for you.
Now, that one there, salt is bad for you. I missed that point to touch on what you said before. That was studied with salt in foods, and generally it's in highly processed foods. Is that not correct?
Exactly. So when a lot of the suggestions to lower salt were basically based on not salt per se, but where most people get their salt, processed foods.
Right. Thank you.
So then you have all this idea that salt is bad for you, and you have people parroting it, your parents, your grandparents, everybody is trying to lower sodium. So you don't register that you actually need sodium. It's something that people just don't care about. And for me, it was paramount because I experienced it and I knew about it. And every time that my clients complain, it's basically, you need sodium, you need sodium, you need sodium. And imagine that I had my protocol, my company and my forums for 8 years, and I had been advertising to every single question that I got. I feel like crap, you need sodium, and do that for 8 years. And then it sort of clicked. Why do I like it's highly complicated for people to actually follow the amounts they need. Because people
Yes.
were telling me, oh, I do get salt. I salt all my food. This is not enough to get those 3 to 5 grams that you likely need when you're doing that ketogenic diet or a low carbohydrate diet or a whole food diet. Like if you're eating processed food diet or normal, like a westernized diet, you're probably getting on average 2 to 3 grams of sodium per day.
Right.
But if you just change to even to paleo, like diminish eating processed foods and even eating a sort of high carbohydrate diet, you're still going to need those 3, maybe even 4. You do need to salt your food much
Yes.
more diligently than most people believe,
Hell
right?
yes.
And then
A
again,
lot more.
and then on ketogenic diets at the beginning, even more. So again, I was telling people this for 8 years. It was the number one thing that I saw, and sort of like when it clicked to me was I have all of these people wanting this. I've shared a recipe to make your own keto version at home, but people are generally lazy. They're not getting the proportions correct. They maybe do it for a week, but then again, it's a hassle to make that concoction, and you have to be doing it and drinking it and blah, blah, blah. It's like, if I can make something sort of like it's ready to drink and it's conventional, let's see what happens. And we started to do a homebrew version here in Mexico. And most of my clients were actually in the States. So basically, it's okay, we have the version. Let's ship it to the States and see how people react and if they like it.
Hmm.
And that was basically the prototype for Element. And funnily enough, I had became friends with Rob Wolf. I had been on his podcast for about 2 times. One, because precisely he was starting to get into jiu-jitsu and he was not, he was basically getting drained. He couldn't keep up with the demands of the sport. And one of the things that I actually suggested was, Rob, you're basically dehydrated. That's one of the things that you need, because if you ever done jujitsu, you know that during that drill you probably sweat 2 liters of water,
Yeah.
and
Wow.
then doing a low carb diet even more. So you're already depleted, you're sweating more, you actually need to hydrate properly, and it's not water, it's water with sodium. And then the other thing that I also talked is probably you need a little bit of carbs intra workout, which
Yes.
is another version which is called the targeted ketogenic diet. So there are, like, again, certain contexts. But he started doing this and he felt incredible and was like something so obvious. But even I, that I'm a chemist and famous paleo researcher, I've had currently 3 books that are bestsellers, and it basically flew through me. I didn't like it. I didn't thought that I needed so much sodium. I was taking some sodium, but not as much as I needed, right? So then what happened is I basically sort of had an elevator pitch with Rob. He came to Mexico for a vacation and he decided to invite me for whatever reason, Baja California. And I was there. We went there for about a week and we became even better friends, like getting a connection with the family, etc. And I was, Rob, I have this idea. I have this product and I want to sell it in the States. And we're already selling about $10,000 a month just from my clients with your bandwidth, which is 10 times bigger or whatever bigger than mine, your knowledge, we can probably make this even better. I just need someone apart from you that can operate a company in the States, because I live in Mexico. I don't know about the regulations. Making business in Mexico is highly complicated. The market is very small. I'd rather do it in the States. And coincidentally enough, he had just met our CEO, uh, which is an amazing and super intelligent person, James, which is the person that has made Element what it is today, operation wise and sales wise.
Wow. Yep.
So that's basically the short
Yeah.
version of how Element was born. Basically, we saw a necessity, and we had I guess we were at the right time with the right persons, with the right team to make it happen.
And also, you said it there, but now you and I are here. Authenticity trumps a lot of things. I was saying to someone the other day, in the special forces, we don't discriminate against everybody. But what we do discriminate against immediately is incompetency. You could be any color, age, sex, whatever the hell you are. If you're good at your job, come on in, because I need you to do your job well so that I can live and I can help those other people live. And your authenticity and competency is clear. And the reason I state that is because Rob brought you to his place and bang, you had that connection. You said it here, you've been so agnostic, you're just stating about or the ketogenic diet, stating about what element is and so on. And it shows through rather than the ego side of things. And that's where I learned about the ketogenic diet for a very egotistical sort of man that didn't state the facts very well, but you have. And then back to authenticity, I was at Big Sky in Montana, and there's a beautiful building with LMNT, and I took a photo outside of it. It looks great, and it just said to me, this stuff is really the big time. And then,
by the way,
yeah,
sorry to interrupt. Do
yeah.
you know that Big Sky is our home base?
Is your home base
For Element? Element is based on Montana, and basically, if you when were you there?
6 weeks ago
here?
at the PBR?
Oh, okay. So we were there. Rob, James, and I were there. We had a huge Element booth.
Yes, you did. Yeah.
Yeah, we normally we do our annual retreat. So the whole team usually meets there, and it's like basically planning the next year, see what we did right, what needs to be improved. But Big Sky is basically our home base. So we have the Salt House near the PBR.
Yeah.
And probably by it should be finished by now, but we're going to have like a flat store where you can go and buy Element swag and get to know some of the people, or just buy Elements.
Well, we are going back there. We had the best time going across America. We got to meet guests from the show that are friends. We got to meet friends that were guests on the show that was phenomenal. And not only that, we felt the safest we've ever been in America, but so welcomed. And we're going back to Big Sky. We're going to stay there for the next time. And I love the element that Judd provided to us as well. It's brilliant. Now, for the listeners and viewers, we've done a deep dive into things, not what I intended, which is great. Element comes in the sachets. And just to touch on that, I'll come back. I am pretty clear on that. You remind me so much of Dr. Kirk Parsley, Lewis. The reason I say that, again, preaching the choir with you, but for the listeners, Dr. Kirk Parsley was a Navy SEAL who was told in high school that by his teacher that he would amount to nothing and should just give up. And so he dropped out of high school and became a Navy SEAL. After a successful career, he left the SEALs and became a doctor, went back to the SEALs as their doctor, and they were all having sleeping problems and hormonal problems. And so he did what you did, Lewis, and said, right, well, go and get this thing and this thing and this thing and this thing, and that'll get you good sleep. And they said to him, hey, man, just make the thing. And that's kind of what you realized. It's not so good when you tell somebody else to do it, but when you can give them this sachet or give them this RTD drink, it's going to work. And you remind me so much of that because you've made something that works that people can use. So
actually, Rob is a great friend of Dr. Parsley.
Exactly.
He used to work with him on his sleep remedy.
And that sleep remedy is phenomenal.
It's amazing. Exactly.
But those are the two things that I take there's the LMNT and the sleep remedy when I need it. But you've got the LMNT and the sachets and the ready to drink drinks. You said about James, who I don't know, but the brains behind it, the success. Where do people go for these things? Because I know they're not available in New Zealand, but where do people go to grab your LMNT generally? Can we get an idea? Listeners will be listening now going, hey, I want some of that stuff.
For sure. So normally we sell mostly in the States via our own Shopify, our website, and Amazon. We basically started this year also in many stores like Target, Walmart. We started basically a month ago in Costco, Canada. We also sell in Canada via Amazon and in Mexico through me. And we're likely by the end of the year also going to start more officially selling in beer stores in Mexico. You can find it in Europe, especially in the UK. Yeah, some wholesalers. Australia. We also have a big seller in Australia. So likely you can get it to New Zealand via that route, I guess. And there's some small suppliers, not official, but that basically buy element in the States and resell in many other countries.
Hmm.
So I guess depending on most of where your listeners are from, they are from the States. Very easy to get it directly. Just write element on Google, and you're gonna likely get a hit. If you are in Australia or New Zealand, probably also Amazon, I guess.
Yeah.
Or yeah, there should be a big supplier as well.
Thank you. And um, again, going back to that authenticity, a good friend of mine, Sharon Tompkins, I don't think I've ever mentioned her on the show. She's in New Zealand, a top woman, amazing support. She uh, did get it into New Zealand directly once, but there's some kind of hold up there. She told me that on your website, the authenticity is you've got the recipes for these things, which a bit back to what we said before. People don't really do it very well, but she does. But you're so authentic on the show that on the company that you've actually got how to make these things. You're not holding that like a lot of people do with their proprietary formulas.
Yeah, what we sell is basically convenience
Yeah,
and of course the taste, right? We a lot of people say, "Oh, I've tried this and it doesn't taste like uh, your flavor."
yeah,
Well, that's part of the secret, right? We do take a lot of care of the ingredients and the flavors to make it exactly right. But if for whatever reason you don't like some ingredients, some people are, as everybody, maybe a little bit more sensitive to maybe stevia or whatever, right? We have a version that is basically free of everything. It's just basically sodium, potassium, and magnesium in the right proportions. And there are some people that actually do buy a lot of that flavor, basically their raw flavor. But there are some people that just basically they may say, I want to make it myself. Okay,
yeah.
this is the way that you can do it. And like the version that I used to do for myself was more like a mojito. Basically had the spearmint, a little bit of cucumber, and just basically sparkling water, and that's it. And it actually is super refreshing, but it takes a lot of time. Well, not a lot of time, but it takes some time to prepare. Versus what we sell here, basically, is just basically you have it, you open it, and you put it on whatever water you want, and you're ready to go. Or if you have the ready to drink, basically just open it up and drink it.
Exactly. And you're so right about taste. And I can, again, state firsthand, we're at the rodeo sitting down, surrounded by a bunch of beautiful females and a few big, rugged cowboy males, and they're drinking these LMNT drinks. And I personally went through three of them. It's at altitude, as you know, Big Sky's a very high place, and it's summer. We've just come from winter here in Perth, which is 10 to 15 degrees, but it's Celsius. It's quite warm over there, and it's late in the afternoon, and we're drinking these drinks, and everybody around us is drinking these drinks like it's as good as all the other commercial drinks out there that rely on taste. As you've nailed it with the RTDs, and the sachets are phenomenal. We took those around America, care of Judd Lienhard as well.
Yeah. By the way, did you know or did you notice that we have our own bull?
Your own.
Bull
I
at the
had
PBR.
heard that after again. I was because I realized all this stuff afterwards. We had that one night in PBR. So you got your own bull. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so we bought it 4 years ago, if I recall correctly,
Yeah.
and it's ranked, if I recall correctly, to the latest charts, the current third bull in the world.
Wow. So my boy's here listening. He listens to all the shows. What I'm getting by that is he's one of the third meanest bulls to buck people off. Is that how you mean?
It's still depending on well, how you score. It's a combination of both the rider and the bull,
Yeah.
and how many seconds the rider is can basically hold on to the bull. So
Yeah.
he's ranked currently, or he was basically when we were this year at PBR, number third in the category. It's funny. His name is Riding Salty. It's a huge white bull.
We saw him, and we saw the cowboy roping them as well. We saw Ryan Salty. I remember that stands out because I was videoing it and for all the memories. We had a great time there. Lewis, that's phenomenal. Thank you for explaining things in depth and then on the surface as well, which is so important for shows like this because we got such a genre of people. You're right, 60% of the listeners are from the States, and then the rest are from the UK, Australia, New Zealand, and Japan, and around the world. But look, I just wanted to say, and I mean this, I never blow smoke with guests. Congratulations on this, because going from where you've gone, I did not know your story. From you, I feel a bit mean saying it, but you said it, so I can repeat it. Going from the fat kid at school to overcoming your own eating disorder through the university, to having a successful partnership in a product like LMNT that helps others, and you get business success. And congratulations, you've done so well. I'm really great to see the success there.
I'm very, first, I wouldn't say I'm thankful, but I'm also honored first to be in this position. And my goal in life, and something that I've always told, is to transcend via helping other people,
Yeah,
especially because of a little bit of my life story is if I can help just two or three persons improve themselves, I basically feel that I've achieved something, right? And via Element, it has been basically my wish come true. There's no better way to reach more people and help them, which is basically one of the missions of Element, help people through hydration. And it's funny enough that a lot of people think, or it's my definition, that they don't have energy to a point, because I don't know if you know that, at least for us, the definition of electrolytes. If you ask 20 different persons what electrolytes are for, people don't know what they are for. They just know they are electrolytes. They know that they hydrate you, but they actually don't know the actual process of how these actually works inside your body. And the best way that I could explain it is they're the ignition. Basically, you can
ignition.
have ignition. It's like you can have your car with the gas tank completely full, but if the ignition, the spark plug doesn't work, your car is not going to do anything. And a lot of us tend to live our lives basically out half energy. And we tend to use lots of energy drinks, coffee, etc. And we don't need more coffee. We don't need more energy drinks. And I'm a super coffee drinker. I love coffee, but more coffee is not necessarily the answer. And more calories aren't as well. You don't need more sugar. You don't need more calories. What you need is more salt. Salt is the ignition for all your cells to start basically doing their job. It's like you have the energy, but without sodium and potassium, the potassium and sodium pump is not going to work. So the energy is not going to be able to basically get inside and outside the cells as it should.
So right. This is interesting. I mentioned slightly that I interviewed a guy last night. I interviewed a Dr. Matt Fontaine, and he's written a book called Only One Body, and then the subheading is The Owner's Manual for Optimal Health and Peak Performance You Never Got at Birth. You just said again, we don't know how electrolytes work, and fair enough too, but now we sort of should. It's 2025. You've done the research for 24 years, if I did the maths right, from 2001, I think you said you started. You know, we need to learn from that. And what's great about what you said, I've got a Delta guy, a New Zealand SAS guy saying, I'm just here to help someone. Same thing with you. That's why people come on this show, because we are there to authentically assist someone else there and help others as altruistic. But, people need to know these things and gain that little bit of knowledge from Lewis, gain that little bit of knowledge from Kirk, gain that little bit of knowledge from, well, Dr. Matt Fontaine over there, and then put that together in ways that we don't have to go and do 24 years of research. I can just take this and then sort of start to learn a bit about it. I think it's very clever, and I'm honored. You said you are. I'm honored to be able to bring someone like you on the show. Thank you again for your patience in getting here. And we've just got information out there that hopefully one person is going to help out there, and then possibly pass that on.
Yeah, that's basically they eat.
Awesome. Well, I'll tell you what, a couple of things. One, I'm gonna come see you at Big Sky, so I'll figure out when he'll be there next. We'll be there in person. We have to go back to Montana. Out of all the places, one of the ones I love the most, on top of seeing the guys and girls through the states. We have narrated show notes at the start. People have got to know where to find you, but people got to this stage. Where do people find out more about you, particularly Luis and LMNT? What's maybe some websites or socials there?
So in my case, basically everything that's KetoGains. You basically
KetoGains.
Google KetoGains, you will get to a connection to me. Basically Reddit, Facebook, Twitter, or also you can look directly for me on Instagram, Luis_Villaseñor_KG. That's my personal account,
Brilliant.
and of course Element.
Of course. And all those are in the narrated show notes and the show links below as well. Luis, thank you so much for giving your time. Thank you for connecting and thank you for what you've created. I'll be getting a lot more of that over here and looking forward to seeing you all in person and maybe getting a bit closer to that crazy bull of yours.
For sure. And if you ever come to Mexico as well, just give me a ping and I'll be sure to show you around the best places.
I now have, I had reasons to go to Mexico. I now have a nice, safe entrance into there. So we'll put that onto the calendar as well.
For sure.
Awesome. I'll hit pause. We'll have a quick chat. Thanks for watching. I'm Damien Porter, former New Zealand Special Forces operator and former Australian police officer, and your podcast host. Please check out my new project at hownottoDieGuy.com, where I teach everything you need to know to both males and females, at-risk populations, schools, kids, and the elderly for self-defense, situational awareness, and all-round skills that every good person should know. Thanks for watching.